Okay, I'm here with Team Willoughby. Hi, everybody. Can you guys please introduce yourselves?
Okay, I'm Ann Willoughby, the founder of Willoughby Design, and I'm going to introduce my partners will introduce themselves in a moment, but I'd like to just say real quickly, we're here as Team Willoughby to support the Design Here initiative that we are launching here in Kansas City.
Hi, I'm Megan Stevens, and I'm the managing principal here at Willoughby.
Hi, Megan.
Hello.
I'm Abby Woolsey, and I'm the studio manager at Willoughby.
Abby, how are you?
I'm Jamie Hausch, and I'm account manager here at Willoughby.
Great. I told you guys before, this is the first time I'm interviewing an entire team, which I'm really excited about. So let's just jump right in. And can you describe to me what you guys are focusing on with Design Here? Because it sounds fascinating, and it's right in alignment with some of the themes to this year's Fuse conference.
Thank you. Well, what we're doing here at Team Willoughby is focusing on a movement initiative that we're starting here in Kansas City. It's called Design Here. And it's about all the things and the people and the initiatives that we have done here in Kansas City over the past 120 years. And it really combines everything from graphic design to architecture to product design, basically all of the disciplines that we all practice in each city. And what I think is really interesting about Kansas City is we have a collaborative team or an association called the Kansas City Center for Design and Architecture. And what that is, it is really all of our different professional organizations have come together. And it's everything from advertising to publication. And we are all behind this initiative. And that means that this is cross-discipline. And that's something I think every city tries to do, but it's really hard to do. And that was certainly the spirit of the Bajas, which was to bring the different disciplines together and approach projects or initiatives as holistically. And so if you really look at it, that's what we're doing. To describe it a little bit more, Designed Here is the purpose of this initiative is to identify and capture the history of design in Kansas City. Good examples are the beautiful Mercedes-Benz Stadium or the Super Bowl was designed right here in Kansas City. And many of the people that were working on it came and worked in Kansas City for the past 3 years. Another initiative is identifying the designers who we call designers or creatives at risk. They were people, many were women, who were never recognized in the 20th century, not because they didn't participate, but because they weren't identified and recognized. And so we are working with the Kansas City Center for Architecture and Design and AIGA to go back and identify these people and to really capture their story and to create a map that will really kind of say, wow, look at all the wonderful things we've done. So we hope that this kicks off in Kansas City and it spreads across the country.
I think that's tremendous work. I'm a designer. I don't know if you guys knew that. So I am a designer. I'm the brand director here. Oh, you can tell. The brand and design director here at Informa. And so I know personally the struggles that a designer has in our profession. And I think history is so tremendously important. I think the work you guys are doing is very important. I did a bit of research on the Willoughby group. You're all females. So I'm looking at all women here, and I know that was very important to your creating your firm. Can you guys speak a little bit about that and the importance of that?
Well, I'll start, but I'd love for everyone else to jump in here. When I graduated from college way back in the dark age of, anyway, I won't go back that far, but anyway, women went to design school and they maybe worked until they got married or maybe had a baby, and that was it for their careers. I mean, pretty much 90% of women did not continue in the field. So because of my personal circumstances at the time, I wanted to start a firm and create a culture that nurtured the ideas and the work habits that I felt supported women throughout their career. So I started Willoughby, and we've always had men, but we have always been predominantly women. And I do believe, even though we haven't always articulated it, it has brought a culture and a sense of support that has allowed us to have what I would call a balanced life and also do fabulous work. And that's been the mission all along. And we have found that supporting women, especially during, when they have children or they have conflicts in their life where, and we all know that many women have to not only support work, but have to support home and children and family. And we really believe in that. And I do believe it has made a difference. I know for a fact that 2 of our partners came here early on and have stayed and are now running the company because of the support we had for their lives and their children.
So
Yeah.
okay.
Go ahead, Megan. Go ahead. Sure.
And then I'll just add on to that because I'm one of the partners who I've been here for about 20 years and came when I was pretty young. And at the time, it was important to me to find a new culture that was had at least more women in leadership. And I met Ann. And it's interesting because we've, talked about internally, how do we talk about women-owned and operated, and what does that mean for our clients? And what we've learned over the years is we bring a women's perspective to design and to experiences. And there's so many studies out there that show that if you have women at the table with men, you're going to create solutions that work for both women and for men. And it's that kind of balance that we bring to our clients. And it's important to our clients because many of them are still very male-dominated on their boards and their leadership. And so we've had the opportunity to work in those kinds of situations. And then as far as our culture goes, as Ann said, we have men who work here, but we are a women-led culture. And it's really enabled women to come back to work. Both Nicole and I, who are now partners here, have families, we have children, we have a lot of parents, men and women, who you're able to do the work you love and you're able to raise the family you love. And it's just been an amazing experience for me, which is why I stayed here for so long.
It's great. I've been in it for 20 years. I can't believe it, but I was the youngest of 5. I had 4 sisters. So I'm looking at four women here. So I was a boy. And as long as I've worked here, I've had a female boss. So, and I've managed teams that are all women, and I'm now managing a team that's all men, which is very interesting. And I have actually, it's almost I kind of hesitate to say, but I've noticed differences in how women and men operate.
For example,
I would say that, well, I'll beat up on the men a little bit first, but I would say men tend to be more tunnel vision. So you give them a task and they want to focus on a task, and I am this way, to the point where potentially you might have a conversation with them, and I've had this experience. I've have a conversation with a man on a Monday and say, "Can you do A, B, and C?" "Sure, I got it, Dan." And then Wednesday comes, "Hey, did you do that?" "Do what?" What we spoke about on Monday, A, B, and C. We never spoke about it. "Yeah, we did speak about it, and you said yes." And I've had this experience. First of all, I've been on the other end of that. When I've gone through this experience, I've picture my mother or my sisters or my wife or my girlfriend saying, "No, we did have this discussion." I don't have that experience with women. But on the other hand, I find women there's a lot more sensitivity to women. And both of these things are very good and very bad. And I might be getting myself in trouble kind of throwing these observations out. But this is my personal experience, and I've found that, it's one thing. I think equality of opportunity is fantastic. So everybody has an equal shot, and everybody can kind of put their hat in the race. But what I'm finding in this new landscape is we don't necessarily get equality of outcome. Meaning, if you change the face and the look and the being that you're working with, you're going to get a different result. And so I think this is kind of a mass experiment going on, especially with, you know, if you saw the State of the Union last night with, you know, this female-dominated Congress. I mean, things are really starting to change. The pendulum is swinging, and I think there's going to be a lot of challenges that arise that maybe people didn't expect. So all of a sudden, I think I'm turning the interview into my thoughts, but
no, we have other questions for you. Just kidding.
One thing I'd like to add to that, though, is the pendulum is swinging, but it's just more women at the table, but there's still men at the table. You know, it used to be primarily a lot of men, especially in the creative industry, a lot of in the leadership for creatives, because women tended to drop out because of our career paths. And so I think it's interesting as you're seeing, you know, when men tended to just go up the creative ladder, especially in agencies, because they wouldn't stop when they leave to have children and things like that. And so women would kind of drop out and they wouldn't get promoted to creative director as much. Yeah. And we're seeing that change. We're seeing more women in creative director positions alongside the men. And what's interesting about that is now you have a different conversation.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, women, we're not at the point where a man can choose to have a child. But you know, with the invention of birth control, a woman can choose not to, you know, and so this really kind of, so we're not, technologically, I think that was a huge advancement. And so you see this change. This has only been a few decades, right?
The other thing we're seeing, though, is that I think as you're seeing the younger generations, you're seeing men who want to take part in child raising. You know, it used to be the women raised the children and then men went to work. Well, now younger men, they want to be there to take their children to school as well. And so I think what you're seeing, what you saw, the way women went to work, I think you're going to be seeing more and more the way people go to work.
I fully agree. I mean, I have 3 kids, so yeah. I listen and watch my wife go through this. We were fortunate enough where we chose she could stay at home with the kids, but now she's back working. So, but it's, you know, she took about a decade off. And that was our choice. That was her choice. It was my choice. And that it has a serious impact on someone's career, you know? So now she's going back to work and she's feeling this frustration. It's like, of course, she's a school director. She became a director in a year. So, I mean, that's my wife. But it's interesting. It's kind of, there's a confusion around it, and you know, how I relate to that. And I love taking care of my kids. I mean, I think this is a new age of dads as well. I love being with my kids and nurturing the kids and all that. And you didn't, back in the Mad Men days, I don't think you'd hear men saying that kind of a thing. But fascinating stuff. How about Abby or Jamie? Any thoughts?
What I really love about being here at a woman-owned business, first of all, I love saying that I work for a woman-owned business because it's awesome and everybody respects that. But also the understanding that comes along with that. I need to take some time off for a doctor's appointment or whatever it may be. And we have so many generations here. It's nice to see that no matter what phase of life you're in, whether your kids are off at college or about to graduate college, or you're about to send them off to college. There's definitely an understanding there of whatever phase you're in of life, they're going to give you the time to have that work-life balance.
And I think the thing that we try to do, and I think we've done it pretty well, is do top rate work for 40 years. And I think that's really hard for almost any firm. I don't care if it's male-owned or female-owned. It's just very hard to set a standard for the level of quality, creativity, civic engagement, all the things that we try to do here at Willoughby, and to make that work-life balance work, but at the same time to really find a way to accommodate individuals.
Well, and I'll add to that, I think people work harder when they feel they have control of their life. I think when they feel like there is a team of people who respect them, I think they work harder for the very best. And if they cover for each other and they're a team and they care. and that's been what's so cool about being here is we have a very, very high expectation for the work that we put out and for the way we manage our clients. And that's first. And I think when people are really happy about where they are and they feel good about their team, they want to give 150%.
I think that's a very critical point that you both just made, that because I think when we talk about more women in the workplace or inclusion or these kind of buzzwords, there can be a lot of controversy around these things. And I think the proof is in the pudding, and what you both just said, that it's really about your work. And I've seen the work you guys have done. It's clearly quality work. That remains to be the most important. So it's not just people, it's not a girls club replacing the boys club, so to speak. So I think that's an important point.
And we're a service-based business. So if a client needs an 8 o'clock meeting, we figure it out. We move things around and we make sure we're there when we need to be there. And we support each other. And I think that's what makes it work.
There's a wonderful saying, you want to get something done, give it to a busy mother. And I could not agree more. I mean, we get stuff done here. And it's just amazing when there's not conflict. You know what I'm talking about? When you have a culture where you really all work together to eliminate, when I say conflict, I mean drama, people's drama, and which is natural in every company, every home. We really try to eliminate that because ultimately what we really care about are our clients. And we've been very involved in both social and civic projects over the years. And I think it's the civic projects, and many times they're also social, that have really given us a sense of our place in Kansas City and in history. For example, we've been working for, almost more than a decade on public transportation in Kansas City. And this has become really something that we have seen our work over, actually it's been 15 years. We've seen our work really make a difference in the city. We've seen people all of a sudden that want to ride the bus when we are a car town, as you can imagine. Our new streetcar that we branded and helped really help change hearts and minds about public transportation. And to see changes, real changes, because of the work we did. And the work we did wasn't always just design. It was going to meetings. How many meetings?
Close to 100 on just getting our new streetcar brand. And one of my favorite stories about the streetcar brand is it wasn't even the streetcar, it was our first Metro Area Express here in Kansas City. And one of the things we named it the Max. And one of the things that we did was really understand who are the current users and who are the potential users. And then how do we get into their heads and understand how to make more potential users use public transit? And one of our focus was how do we make it feel safe and how do we make it feel clean? And those things that parents think about when they're letting their children ride public transportation. And we had a mom come in at a meeting and said that her daughter rides the Max with her friend down to shop at the plaza here in town because it felt safe and because it was clean. And that's the kind of feedback that we love to hear, because that means we're really getting into that user's mind and making change that means something to our community. Right. And there was the woman's perspective, right? The mama let her daughter ride it.
No, that's fantastic. And, I have these questions I want to ask you, and we're already answering some of them. But this is, the Fuse tagline this year is design, brand, and business, a new unity. And what you're describing is, I would argue, is exactly that, how design is affecting community and bringing a new unity. So let me kind of switch gears a bit here. Okay. As a design firm and as an entrepreneur, I mean, clearly you guys have found a formula that works. You've managed to establish successful dialogue with business executives. Can you talk about maybe some of the ways that got you to where you are and some of the learnings you had? So I imagine, and this is one of the real themes for this year's Fuse, is how does a designer kind of up their game so they get a seat at the table with business executives? Can you speak a bit about that?
Okay, I'll use an analogy that I'm actually going to use at Fuse, so maybe this will help. One of the joys of being in this business is to really understand our clients, their needs, and their audience's needs, and to really have a deep collaboration and a working relationship. And I'm just going to give one example because it ties in to not only Willoughby, but it also ties into the city of Kansas City and Designed Here. We worked on a project well over a decade ago called for Lee Jeans, and it was Lee Dungarees, and the mascot for it was Buddy Lee. And our project initiative, and we worked with Fallon McElligott up in Minneapolis on this, was to really change teenagers' minds about wearing their mother's jeans. Because Lee on the back of a pair of jeans back then meant, oh no, I'll never wear those jeans. So we worked in collaboration with the lead team, executive team there. We all worked so closely together to reimagine this brand. But part of that was interviewing teenagers, and they gave us so much information about what they loved and what they hated, and we came together and we created something that really worked. And to see it work and to see kids wearing Lee Dungarees, it really swept the nation. And this was at a time when Levi, of course, was very strong, and Lee was right in there with them. And I realized at that time that there were no agencies, there was no Lee team, there was no Willoughby team. We were one united team on this. Now that doesn't always happen, as you know. Yeah. But when it does, it's magic, because what happens is you really see people change their minds and they respond and do things. And that is always our what we always want to do is to find and nurture those kind of collaborations with our clients. And sometimes it really works, and sometimes it doesn't work as well. But when it does work, it's our clients continue to work with us. So,
and I'll comment just on how do we kind of merge the design into the business side, yes. Knowing that really a business is led at the C-level, the C-suite, the CEO, the president, yeah. The directors. And we always launch our projects with a strategic initiative, and it's some kind of a workshop or a roundtable, and we ask for the leaders who are the decision makers to be in the room. And we emphasize how important that is. Because if we don't have the buy-in of the CEO or the president or the visionary behind a brand, it is really hard to make change. And so we just state it up front, and normally they come because if they care about it, they'll be there. And if they don't care, then we probably have a problem.
Well, I was just going to say, kind of tying in with what Ann was just saying about the Lee Jeans project. It sounds like you really, it's very human-based. Yeah. You address what's the need, what do these people actually really care about, what do they want, and you start from there. It's very simple. It's a simple concept, but arguably not easy, I imagine. Right. And then to flip that back to, okay, well, now we've won the hearts and minds of the client, we think, but what about the CEO who's unavailable or just wants the bottom line, does not want to engage in that discussion? When they don't show up, let me ask you this. Have you ever refused a client that you felt, well, these guys don't care? So without maybe naming names.
Well, I would say that that we have, but mostly we try to work with what we have, because a lot of times the people that are maybe the president or maybe the director of marketing, whatever, they have to get their job done, and we respect that. So we do what we can, but we feel like our job is to support them to get the work done. So we try to do that.
And if we're working with a brand manager, we know that part of our job is to give that brand manager the tools that they need to present up to their leadership, right? And so it's just really gaining a solid understanding of how the approval process works, who's really in charge of making the decisions, and then making sure that we're creating the right tools for them.
Well, and you know, one other thing, I think this is a really good time to talk about this. I think our approach, although I don't know that we always knew this was our approach, is that we go in, I wouldn't say humbly, but we don't go in as big egos, and we don't do the presentation like, okay, here we go, this is the best thing you've ever seen. We don't do the big win the you know, the agency of record things, because we just don't have the resources or the we don't believe in the show and tell thing. We believe in starting slow, working together, and doing great things. Does that make sense?
We don't do big pitches, and we don't do spec work. You know, we don't go in saying that we know what your brand needs to do before we've met you. We go in saying we need to meet you.
Maybe this is a New York City-based question. So I might have a bias here, but how do you deal with clients who are very pushy and want deliverables immediately? If you're coming in slow and hey, let's kind of get to know what the issue is here, and they're pushing.
That's a great question.
Deliverables.
And we deal with that a lot. And one of our core values that Ann set up a long time ago that I probably value the most is kind and candid. And what we mean by that is kind. You can go in if there's a controversy and you can be kind about the way you handle it. And then candid, which is just be honest. Don't overpromise things that you can't do. And if something's not working, nicely say it's not working and we need to figure out something else. And typically we'll go in and say, what's your immediate problem? What do you need solved? And maybe there's an interim, okay, you need that package out in 2 weeks. You know, let's see if that's possible. But then how can we figure out a timeline to do it the big picture visionary way? You know, so we just try to ask the right questions and understand what their problems are. And sometimes if we don't think it's a good fit, we'll say it's not a good fit.
Right. And we have, in fact, we have a current client I can't name, but who really wants a broad brand outlook and a retooling of it. But they have some immediate needs to hit the market, and we call that flying the airplane while building it.
Yep.
Building the airplane while flying it.
We call that changing the tire while the car's still moving.
Yeah, okay, but we know how to do that because many times they really want us to help with the big things, and usually that's what it is. But they have something due next week, and we said, well, we can help you with that. And the meeting we had, I cannot name the client, but they ended up sending us the whole background, and of course we had to sign an NDA and everything on the first call because they want us for the long term, but they need us for the immediate.
Right.
Because business goes on. You have to be able to figure out how to keep business moving while you're trying to create change.
I mean, that's life, isn't it? And I think of my wife with my kids. I mean, that's you made allusion to that earlier. I mean, I do that as a dad, but I watch it with my wife all the time. Yeah. So this has been a really great discussion. I mean, I think we've answered all of my questions. I didn't even ask the questions.
Accessibility options.
I have one more. I wanted to add one more thing, if I may.
Yes.
That brings all this around. Part of our working on the Design Here initiative, Lee Jeans, who was founded here very near Kansas City and has been in Kansas City for the last 100 plus years. And we did the 100-year anniversary book. It's wonderful. But anyway, they have a spectacular museum here. And we want it to be part of our Design Here initiative. But unfortunately, they're moving the museum. They're packing it up and moving it because of some of the brand assets when they're going to sell the Lee brand to we don't know who. And so that's part of their assets. And we really want to make sure that museum, that we're noted for it, that hopefully we can maybe keep part of it here or that it doesn't just die. And if you go in the Lee Museum, which Abby and I did a few weeks ago, it's like looking at the history of Willoughby design. I mean, we have work in there. They were my very first client, Lee Jeans. And this was back in the 70s. We have worked in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s with a client, 40 years of work. And you know, brands die and they're sold, and this has happened to Lee. So it's a little bit like if Levi were to leave San Francisco. That's kind of what it feels like to me.
Well, and even just beyond Lee, a point that Ann brought up around the design here that I think is important is that as we've moved more into the digital age and we're creating concepts so quickly and our deadlines are so fast, a lot of history is being lost, especially in the 2000s. Because you go up to archives up to 2000, a lot of work was printed. And now that you have so much digital, and the world we live in, we finish a project, we move on, it might be recorded, it might not. And so design here is focused on how do we create a new way to capture our history and not just move so fast that we forget everything, which I think is really important.
I think it is. I don't know why, but I immediately thought I have all my kids' artwork in my basement because we didn't want to throw them out. And I have 3 kids. They're aged 7, 9, and 11.
Uh-huh.
And it's like, come on. I mean, these, you know what these kids bring home.
We all have.
I have the same thing in like bins, random bins in my basement. And yeah.
So my intent is I'm going to take pictures of them all and throw them out. So I'll have a digital recording of all of that. But, you know, you can't hold on to that stuff. It's just going to.
Well, you can save some of it.
You can say some of it. Yeah, absolutely.
So just as a side, are you familiar with an app called Artsonia? ARTSONIA? Is that
the one where you can create a book out of your kids' art?
No, our art teacher uses it, and every piece of art she puts up in a portfolio for my son. I have a 7-year-old, and then you can, like, grandparents can order it on a mug or whatever. But what's interesting is it's a way to document their art all on one app.
Yeah,
so just you know, something to consider.
I will. No, my wife was looking. There's similar platforms out there. It might have been Artsonia. I don't know, but that kind of idea. But to me, it seems like this is probably the solution to what we're describing. There's also, you know, the whole statistic of we're in the information age. So like published articles, images, they've just exponentially increased over the past decade. I mean,
unbelievable.
Like we're talking
so much content.
Yeah.
We can't even handle all the content.
But the problem is, and I'm discovering this with design here in Kansas City, there's no narrative for it. It's just that they all exist separately. So our initiative ties everything together in some format. You know, we will have digital archives, but we also want to do a book, and we want to do an exhibit at one of the museums, and they're all behind it. I mean, we really have citywide support for this.
I mean, that sounds fantastic. I mean, frankly, this is what, when you're talking about Lee jeans and the museum moving, I mean, I had Lee jeans growing up. So I'd be interested in what that narrative looks like. So I don't know, food for thought. It'd be nice to see if you guys came up with some type of a narrative around your history with Lee jeans, especially if you said the museum is moving or it's kind of closing down.
They're moving it. They're packing it up and moving it to Greensboro, South Carolina, awaiting the sale of the Lee jeans brand to whoever's going to buy it.
I see.
But the museum, they're moving out of the building, and the museum is being packed up. That's what I'm told by the archivist.
And the museum is kind of like, it's a huge room which is packed with archives. It's not, you know, not everything's on display. It's just basically
They've upped their game.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, it's well done.
But it is packed.
It's packed.
There is so much history in there, just in a room, in a building, off a highway.
And
it's crazy.
And Hallmark's another one. Hallmark is here in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And it's what's interesting, at least to design here and to Willoughby Design, is just how many lives and companies are networked together to support these big companies like Lee Jeans or Hallmark Cards, or I could go on and on. I mean, it's not just the people that work there, it's all the partnerships and all the vendors and all the people that work together to make all this happen. And if we don't save it, it'll be lost. Our generation will be lost. That's why we're very interested in it.
It also seems like there's a call for new leadership, right?
Yes.
As one thing ends, what do we do now?
Right.
Well, and I think there's a space for designers there as well, yeah?
I agree. And you said something earlier. I'd love to just share this thought and hear your thoughts on this, everyone. But trying to make sense of this transition from sort of a print world to a digital world. I think we're all trying to make sense of it and what that means for companies and what that means for designers. And I think we all would agree that what we're seeing now is more and more brands, and this makes perfect sense to us, they're bringing all their brands inside because it's easier to design and to control your brand when you have, within the company rather than having all these agencies. And so what we're doing here at Willoughby, and it's really working well, is we've always done it, but we're doing a lot more now, is we're really supporting the in-house teams, not as an agency that comes in and says, okay, here's what you're going to do, but here, let's learn together and work together. And we're finding that really is what companies want now.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's happening right here at Informa. Informa just purchased UBM. It was a $4.5 billion purchase here. And so I've come into contact with a half a dozen creative teams here internally. And I work with agencies, and one of the agencies, Nala, who I work with on a weekly basis, I've basically gone to them and I said, I need you guys to take on, I know you don't normally do this, but to take on some of a kind of an internal responsibility for me. And they were like, well, we had to kind of design process together, but my internal team is so inundated that I was like, these guys know us very well. So I said, we were just talking about developing some process and systems. And they looked at me kind of odd, but we're talking about it. So it's just to your point. I think it's just kind of, we're in a strange time, especially for the agency model in particular.
Yes.
Well, these in-house teams, to your point, are handling the day-to-day. They know the brand really well, but sometimes they're asked to do a project that would be a stretch. And we come in and say, okay, how can we help? How can we bring some new thinking? How can we help you with some new research, some new concepts? And that does work really well for us.
That outside perspective I find to be invaluable. Absolutely. I mean, and my guys know it as well. They know, okay, we're gonna get these guys' perspective on it. And
it can be hard, and I think once you develop that trust, then it gets easier, that we're not here to take away your job. We're here to enhance what you do and be a partner with you. And it can be bumpy at first, but we've had some amazing success stories with it.
And I think to Megan's point, our style, which is not to disrupt, but to enhance, really goes down well,
Sorry about that. Somebody just distracted me. So this all sounds great. I apologize. Somebody just knocked on the door there. That's all the time we have right now. I really love this discussion, though. I'd love to extend it. So maybe you guys might be open to a part 2 at some point?
Yes, we would.
All right. I would love that.
We love talking about design.
Yeah, we do. Thank you so much, Dan.
Yeah, so do I. I can't tell. Jamie, Abby, Megan, and Ann, thanks so much for taking the time. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, goodbye.
All right. Take care.